Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever, where today we're reviewing the new album from Sleep, The Sciences. This past Friday we were blessed with not only the return of A Perfect Circle with their newest album, Eat the Elephant, but we were also, got this new surprise album and return from Sleep with their new project, The Sciences. This is the first full-length album from Sleep in a long time. Technically, their last full-length project was in 2003 with Dope Smoker, that hour, and 3-minute long song/album that they put out. But I know technically that was released prior to that, several years prior, as split up into several parts, not the entire thing, not what the band initially wanted, and it wasn't released later on in its original intended format. But regardless of which one you consider to be the last full-length album, it's been a while since we've gotten a full-length from this band, is what I'm trying to get at. We did get the single, The Clarity, back in, I believe, 2014, and that was a pretty good song overall, but of course, doesn't quite satisfy your appetite for a full-length album. And finally, of course, on 420, this band decides to drop a surprise album on us. And what is there to say about it, really? Well, at least in my own opinion, it's a pretty great album. I've been really anticipating a new album from Sleep for a while now, and I've always been curious to know what it would really sound like. And really, it sounds a lot like, in my opinion, The Clarity, the track they released in 2014. That's probably the closest thing I could compare the sound of this album to, really. It doesn't quite have, of course, it doesn't sound like Dope Smoker because it's not an hour-long song. It also doesn't really sound like Holy Mountain either. It doesn't have quite the classic factor that album had going for it. It doesn't quite have the grandness of Dope Smoker, but it's kind of somewhere in between, I feel, with a bit more of a modern polish as well. While the group isn't exactly making hour-long songs on this thing, many of the songs here do run rather long. 3 of them over 10 minutes in length. One of those 3 almost 15 minutes in length. Lots of these songs have a very droning quality to them. Lots of times the riffs are just played out over and over again, kind of similar to what Dope Smoker did, but to a much lesser extent. However, unlike that album, song, whatever you want to call it, the vocals throughout this thing are less harsh, I would say. They're a lot more comparable to The Clarity, the vocals on that, if you've heard that song. That's very much what a lot of the vocals on this thing are like. This album definitely has a unique sound compared to the past 3 releases from this group, but at the same time, it's a sound that's definitely not super brand new in the grander scheme of doom metal or stoner metal, whatever you want to call it, really, because lots of other bands have done a sound like this before. However, it still is done very well here. That's the important part. Like I mentioned earlier, throughout this thing, you just have lots of great guitar riffs that just drone throughout this thing. The opening track, The Sciences, as well as the closing track, The Botanist, are 2 instrumental tracks that, despite being instrumentals, are very interesting. I like how The Sciences is just kind of a nice build-up to everything else that follows it. And The Botanist is just a really cool way to close out the album. I like the instrumental. I think it's very solid and very interesting. Definitely not, a throwaway instrumental or anything quite like that. Throughout this project, you also get lots of really cool guitar solos. Matt Pike is one of my favorite guitarists ever. I just like how he's able to go from these very, almost Sabbath-inspired guitar riffs on, Sleep albums, to very, more aggressive sounds in his own band, High on Fire, another great band. If for some reason you haven't checked them out, make sure you do so. As well as, just throwing in some really great psychedelic, just mind-bending guitar solos on some of the tracks here on this album, as well as previous Sleep albums too. I really just love the whole sound that this project has going through for it. It's very heavy, very thunderous, and at the same time, very much a fun album. Lyrically, there's not all too much that's super interesting with this album. It's pretty much just talking about weed or stuff that they probably thought about while on weed, mixed with science fiction stuff, just typical Sleep lyrics. You're not exactly going to be surprised by the lyrics here on this thing, but at the same time, I don't think anyone was particularly expecting that from Sleep. I mean, at this point, these are the guys who wrote an hour and 3-minute long song about their favorite plant. I don't think they're going to stop talking about it anytime soon. It's pretty much what I'm trying to get at. Another interesting thing about this album is the track Sonic Titan that appears on this thing was actually not a completely brand new song, as it was initially released as a live bonus track with one of the versions of Dope Smoker that was released at some point. but we finally now have an official, studio version of the song, which I think is probably one of my favorite cuts on this entire album. It's a great song in my opinion. So overall, I would say that this album was definitely worth the wait. If you're a Sleep fan who's been waiting a while for this new project to drop, I think you're definitely going to enjoy it, because there's really not all too much done on this thing that I think would scare away old-time fans or anything like that. They don't exactly, do anything all too crazy or too experimental on here. It's just pretty much good, straightforward stoner doom metal, and it's just done very well. These are like, the masters of that genre pretty much. So yeah, I would have to highly recommend this album to you if you're a fan of that genre, if you're a fan of this band. Make sure you definitely check this one out, because it is a very enjoyable project overall. But yeah, that's just my own opinion. Feel free to have your own, and in fact, feel free to leave it down in the comment section. I greatly appreciate seeing it. And while you're down there, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future music-related content. Thank you for watching, guys, and stay golden.